Welcome once again to the BRH show. Today I'm joined by the founder of Coaching Online, Bijan Kholgi. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you for taking the time. And I'm happy to be with you here.
My pleasure. So, Bijan, let's kick this off with you telling us your background, your trajectory in life, and how you ended up doing what you're doing. I understand you're a coach.
Yeah, that's right. I'm happy to share a little bit about my background story. So first my work life started in finance, and over finance I kind of discovered psychology, because it's pretty close together actually. If it's about money and if you take decisions around money, it's often very closely to related kind of to our psyche and to what we learn as kids from our parents and values we get from them. And so my journey, I worked a long time in the finance industry, and then from there I discovered through my own experiences I was more and more interested in psychology and what's going on in my own head with my decisions and decisions for my clients. And so this led me to a path to more to the psychological side. And I did a special education program with a pretty famous teacher in Germany. He was one of the students of Milton Erickson. So Milton Erickson is known for a lot of he's the root of a lot of techniques today, which are called usually more solution oriented. Also NLP was the two founders of who created NLP, also studied with Milton Erickson. And so I got there, and this really changed my life radically. So this was a really profound experience to get introduced to techniques, how to understand our subconscious better, what's going on in our brains, and also hearing other stories. So we were like a group of 25 people, and it was very interesting to hear other insights. So usually if you talk with people, you don't talk about your deepest fears and the things that moving you inside. So it was also very interesting to get the internal stories, which usually not shared openly from a lot of people. And I started this coaching course not with the intention to help people. So it was usually meant just to explore further for myself, for my own inquiry. But kind of the things came together there. So I got a lot of amazing feedbacks from the participants and a lot of encouragement. And so while these 2 years, then the decision ripened over the time that I want to help others with this as well. And since that's kind of, I think I finished 2017 or so, around this time, 17 or 18. And since then, I also help people as a coach, basically.
Yes, and when you mentioned that you were actually mentored by a leading coach, it was Dr. Gunther Schmidt, right?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and I forgot to mention his name. Yeah, he's. I think he's not that well known globally, but in Germany he's very, very famous. Mm-hmm. So he was one of the figures who brought a lot of in the 70s a lot of the wisdom of a lot of I don't have all the names in my head, but a lot of research in psychology in the US. So the US was way leading in this area to Europe. So, and he was one of the figures who introduced systemic therapy here in Europe, systemic family therapy, and different other approaches and techniques, which kind of revolutionized a little bit the view in psychology from other approaches from the past where so yeah.
And of course, you're running your own coaching online now, which is coaching online. It's a very straightforward name, but I've got it from your website, Bijan, that you're actually specializing in what we call transformational coaching. But before you tell us about transformational coaching, could you just explain to us why does coaching matter? Because a lot of people say that, well, we can actually just talk to our friends or we can just read some resources online. So why does coaching matter? And what's the difference with transformational coaching if you're going to compare it with other approaches?
Yeah, sure. So of course we can talk to our friends and it's always very, very helpful, but we usually don't have the understanding what goes on in our head on a deeper level, on a subconscious level. And it's very hard to recognize your own pattern that you maybe spin around with certain things. And yeah, so it's always hard to observe something if you're in the midst of it, rather when an external person comes and from a professional point of view, knowing how pattern work and how what's going on in our brains, that can be tremendously helpful to just give a little hint. I understand myself just as a guide, and guiding through this experience, so this journey to see, okay, what's really going on in our mind on a subconscious level, maybe. So often we feel stuck in certain situations, or we feel I want to change something, but I can't. Something is there which holds me back, or whatever it is. And there, it's very helpful to have, I think, professional guide who knows about the deeper understanding of the subconscious.
And yeah, so you specialize in transformational coaching. So what kind of, I suppose, mindset you're trying to introduce to your clients, and what value do they get out of this transformational coaching?
So transformational coaching, it's such a it's often used a lot, and I'm not sure if I really like the term, but it is indeed possible with just a little just if you have someone on your side who understands what are your pattern in your head, and also how you pursue the world. So we all have a certain worldview, and this is usually shaped through our experiences, through our childhood, what happened to us in life. And usually, if you want to transform, if you want to change something, then it's important to question everything. How we pursue the world, how we see things, and that's a process which is usually very, very effective if you have someone on your side who can analyze how you maybe see certain things, or if you have a challenging situation in your life and you want to overcome something or to change something. Again, it's very helpful to have someone who understands these patterns and also knows certain techniques that I can share with you. For example, if you're my client, how you can use different things to help you get out of this feeling, oh, I can't change it, or I can't change this. Usually people come to me with a challenge, or with they're not happy with certain aspects in their lives usually. And especially in these situations, it can be very helpful to know the right tools to implement basically change and to therefore also change your perceptions, and this can help transform at the end as a person. Yes.
So is that the same as therapy, or would you say that therapy and coaching are completely different?
No, I would say it's always hard. It's always about how you define things. There are also so many therapy directions which can be also totally different, and there are also different coaching approaches. So I would say there is a lot of similarities. There are, of course, if it's about therapy, if you have a really mental illness, or maybe you are on medication or something like this, then of course it's recommended to talk to a therapist. But beside this, I think there are a lot of similarities, and it depends always on the approach. So it's kind of funny. As I started with my journey, I offered free coachings over the internet, and because my teacher is so well known, I got requests from 2 or 3 psychologists and coaches. And I was so afraid. I thought, they know more than me. How can I help them? And at the end, we had really, really nice processes. And it's kind of a funny story. So I think there are a lot of similarities. There are certain things. So I think it always depends which person is in front of you, what's their approach, whether it's a coach or a therapist. And of course, there's this line, if it's about really diagnosed mental illness, then it's recommended to talk to a therapist. So I also had clients who told me they visited 3, 4, 5 therapists, and we could solve things in 2 or 3 sessions which weren't solved before. And I'm pretty sure there are also examples the opposite way, where people having disappointing experiences with coaches, and then if you find a good therapist, then it can be the same way around. So I think it's a pretty fluent border between therapy and coaching. Depends always on the person you are in contact with. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that they also complementary. If you think that you could also benefit, working with a coach or a psychotherapist or a clinician, then I think you can have a sort of a team to help you navigate your life. But Bija, I was wondering if there are specific areas of life improvement that you coach, or you're pretty much flexible.
I'm pretty much flexible. For sure, there are certain topics that come up more often. So, for example, kind of what my observation, what we kind of all have, or not all, but a lot of us have inside of us, feeling not enough, or feeling not worthy. So these are topics which are very common, but also, and I mean, they're all kind of related to this root cause, but also, I have a lot of clients with addictions, for example, and so these are probably topics, if I should pick 2 or 3 out, which are very, very often the case. And I'm also, and maybe also the topic relationships. So there I'm also pretty active. I have a lot of couples I help with changing their pattern, changing their communication when it gets challenging. That's also a topic close to my heart. But in general, I'm pretty open.
I think, Bija, I was just gonna say it essentially works like a dating game. So you it's like you're using a dating app, whether you're a good match with your client. Is that how it works? Do you have an ideal client?
Yeah, I think yes, and I guess so. I think the chemistry has to fit. I think that's a very important part. I agree with you that there are also studies around this that I think the efficacy of a coach or a therapist is like, I think 70% around the chemistry and the personality, and the rest is about the technique and the approach the coach or therapist takes. So, yeah, from my experience, if there's not a good chemistry, then it's hard to help a person. Therefore, it's more like a soft criteria. So I can't say, okay, this and this and this are good criteria, that it's a good fit for me. Yeah, and thankfully, I have to say it's really rarely the case that I don't have a good chemistry to a person. It's a really good question. I have to inquire this more. I can't really answer it from my brain, from a logical side. It's more like an intuitive thing, I guess. Yeah. So
But
that's
what about your own identity, your beliefs, and your biases? Does it in any way influence your approach, or if it does, how do you kind of limit that from happening?
yeah, of course. I'm 100% sure it does. I think it's hard not to. And yeah, I try to put as less as possible, of course, of my beliefs, and I also try to never give advice or something like this. I think a lot of clients coming and having at the first glance, they're having this idea, oh, I get advice what I should do, and then I can just do it, and then my problem is fixed. Of course, I try to avoid this and try to help to encourage people and to help them finding their own decisions. But of course, I'm biased, and I think it's hard to. I think we all are biased, and we have our biases. I'm also coming from a place where I started as a teenager. I had a very low self-esteem, I would say, and thankfully, through my journey over the years, I could build this up very strongly, and this helped me a lot. And I would say this is definitely a motivation for me to help others. And yeah, so maybe I have as well a bias that I think a lot of things are possible. Maybe that's a good bias, but I don't know. Maybe also not. Yeah, so that's kind of
Yeah.
the answer. Maybe I should dig a little bit more in your question. That's a good point. How I prevent my biases to influence the
Mhm.
process. So beside the fact that I try to be neutral or stay neutral, I didn't really yeah, have like scientific methods to make this sure. But I'm also not sure if it's possible. So as long as you're a human being and you're interacting, you're always bringing part of your personality, I guess, inside the process.
Yeah. And also, I was interested to hear from you, Bijan, because in the UK, at least, or in America, coaching is not a licensed industry. So anyone could just be a coach. So how does
Yeah.
that impact regulations in the industry? I don't know if that's the same case in Germany where you are.
Yes. Yeah, it's the same case here as well. So that makes it definitely tricky. And I always tell people you have to be very, very careful and very critical. I invite every client at the beginning to be very critical about what we're doing and about the process and the person as well. So that's definitely an issue, and basically anyone can call himself a coach and yeah, start practicing and doing things with clients. I see this definitely very critical, but on the other hand, yeah, I that's a world in which we operate, and I just can say for myself, I had very high standards to get out. Before I get out there and working with people, I had very high standards about this, and so I'm feeling comfortable with my education and with my background that I do responsible work here. But it's tricky, especially for clients. It's tricky. So I always suggest have a free call with a person, check the background, check the education, and like you said, everyone's biased, and maybe also every problem is different, every challenge is different. So yeah, I would definitely encourage everyone who looks for someone, be very critical, ask a lot of questions, and before you agree, check the background. And especially I would get very critical when it's about selling you packages or something like this. So I never do this. I have like single sessions, and usually my approach is so effective that we don't need much. We usually need maybe 1, 2, or 3 sessions the most. And so I'm not at all interested in selling a client a lot of hours or packages or something like this. So if there comes something like this involved, this maybe there should be some red flags going on in your head. Like, just be careful who you trust and what their intention is behind that.
Yes, I think that's a very sensible advice, Bijan. Well, of course, coach such as yourself need to be financially compensated for your time. But like what you've said, if a coach begins to parade their modules or events or whatever as a source of income, then that is definitely a red flag. As you said, it becomes sort of I suppose just a facade to generate some income.
Yes.
Now, who is coaching not for? Because we've been discussing who can benefit from coaching, but who do you think is less likely to benefit from coaching?
That's a good question. Well, if your life runs smoothly, if you're happy, and if you don't feel you have issues, or then probably you don't need coaching or therapy. So it's just makes sense if people reach a point where they think, oh, I kind of feel stuck, or I kind of have the feeling I need help, or on the other hand, I always in my life, so I had a lot of therapy and coaches on my way, and I always had the approach, well, I can get faster where I wanted to get with external help. So even people that are interested in self-development, but maybe want to speed up the process, I think an external person is there helpful. But yeah, so if you're happy and everything is fine, and then you need help, I guess. So.
Yes, absolutely. I think what's important to realize here is that the way we navigate our lives, we always have blind spot, and when we're not aware of that as individuals, and obviously if you're looking for help from an external person, and they could actually make your blind spot more visible for you, and that will allow you to navigate your life more effectively. I think that's the role of a coach, be it in life or sports. Even these elite athletes, they need a coach to optimize their potential. And I think that's what the role of people such as yourself, that's what you bring to the table. But
yeah, definitely, I agree on that.
What would be your tips for people who wants to follow your footsteps and they want to become a coach? Do you have any advice?
So I think it's important that you naturally are good in connecting with others, because I felt very blessed, even if I was like 35 as I started as a coach, and it was relatively late in my working career, I would say. but I knew how to communicate with people. It was my job before as well, just in another field. So it came always natural to me that it was easy to connect with others. And I think that's very key to have if you want to work as a coach, like empathy and also, yeah, the ability to connect with others. That's definitely a good ground to have if you want to start in this. And then, yeah, I would look. I would definitely look for serious institutions. For example, ICF is a very well known. If you want to go through to coaching, ICF is a very well known license organization where you can be accredited, or you can look for accredited coaching educations accredited by ICF. That's a very professional organization. Or you have to look like I was lucky. So I have a half sister. She's way older than me. And at the time where I started, she brought me to conferences where usually psychologists attending. So she's a psychologist. And she introduced me to all the speakers and all the leading figures. So I had some help here to find really good mentor and teacher. And this is another approach in my view. If you have a person who shaped the industry or is very well known, if it's a coach or a therapist or psychologist, so if you have a good mentor, then it's also, I think, a very good foundation. So this would be my advice. You have to see what fits for you. There's no one solution fits all. Also about the approach, I think it's very based how you are as a person, and so that's for example, to make it maybe a little bit, give you an example. What I really like about the approach of my mentor is I think NLP is very effective, but I don't like it that much because often it has the approach is like you do something with a client, but he doesn't know what you do with him. So that's not really resonating with me. The reason why this method especially resonated with me, because I'm teaching my clients on the way. So we talk about before if I have ideas, what we can do, I discuss them before and I introduce them basically in the whole process that they can do it on their own later. So I'm basically educating them about what are options and what techniques maybe there are, what we can do. So like more, making the client wiser. And this really resonated with me, not to manipulate people. So more like help them to help themselves, to get rid of the coach as soon as possible. So this was deeply resonating with me, and that's the reason it made click for me there. So I would suggest look for this where it makes click with you, where you feel comfortable with also teaching this to others. I think that's very, very important as well.
Absolutely. And just to pivot the discussion to a slightly different topic, Bijan, we have actually an overlapping interest. We're both uploading contents on YouTube. So can you tell us more about your YouTube channel, and do you have any sort of a special, something memorable episode?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm trying to give helpful nuggets in my YouTube channel. It's just a way to share with more people. So if you work one-on-one, it's of course very beautiful, but you kind of limited how many people you can reach, and that's the reason I also started with my blog and with my YouTube channel. I recently made a video about different techniques, how to boost your self-esteem, or I really like an episode I did about anxiety. So I have two episodes about anxiety, and one especially where I go a little bit deeper and I explain more what's usually going on in our head when we have anxiety and how you can unwind these dynamics. And so everyone who's interested boosting their self-confidence or getting help with anxiety, these are, I would say, my favorite episodes so far.
Now, Bijan, we're already approaching towards the end of this interview, so I'd like to wrap this up with some quick fire questions, more about you as a person rather than as a coach.
Yeah,
So,
of
my
course.
first question for you is, what were you afraid of as a child?
That's a good question. I think I was afraid of my dad. Um, he could, in his early days where I was young, he could be quite emotional and yeah. So I think I was a little bit afraid of my dad in my early years. Thankfully it changed over the years, and now it's not anymore the case. But it was always kind of yeah. I said like a good respectful relationship at the younger age. Yeah.
Mhm. And what is your favorite word in another language?
My favorite word in another language. That's a good question. I think I can't answer this. I'm not aware of that I have a word in another language. I maybe to share something with you. I'm feeling a bit embarrassed that and that fits maybe good to this question. So I'm half German and half Iranian. My father's from Iran, and but because my dad worked all the time in my younger years, I didn't really picked up the language. So they speak Farsi in Iran, and I understand the language a little bit. I can recognize it if someone speaks it, but I'm not really able to speak it. Um, yeah, so in general, Farsi is a very beautiful language, I guess, and I'm sure. And yeah, maybe that's one of my to-dos in the future to learn better Farsi to get a bit more connected here to my
Yeah,
roots.
absolutely. Incidentally, when I was in the Philippines, I was a university lecturer, and there's a lot of Iranian students who go to Philippines to study dentistry. And
Mm.
I did not teach dentistry, but I was just teaching them introductory psychology course, because in Philippines, whatever the degree you're doing, you have to do an introductory psychology degree. And I had lots of Iranian students. I pick up some vocabularies from them, like mercy.
Yeah,
They always
yeah.
say that, and Koda Hafiz. But do you have any favorite word in German? Because I believe that's your first language.
That's right. I'm
You
afraid
don't.
also not really. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's fine. And if you weren't a coach, what would you have pursued in your life? Would you have stuck to doing working in finance?
Yeah. Honestly, I couldn't imagine doing something better than this right now, but maybe I would be a musician, like piano player. I think I had 2 or 3 years in my childhood where I learned piano, and I'm always thinking if I would have unlimited time, I would learn the piano again and play piano. Maybe that's a good other career, which sounds appealing. But I have to say, I'm pretty happy right now what I'm doing. Yeah.
And Bijan, finally, the floor is all yours. If people wanted to reach out to you, what platforms can they get in touch with you at? Of course, I'll pop in the link to your website and also the link to your YouTube channel. And do you have any upcoming projects?
Not really. So people can follow me over my blog. It's coaching-online.org. And yeah, also you find all the credentials there to YouTube and Twitter and basically over all social media channels. Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, I'm having maybe I will do with my wife a course for about relationships to
Mhm.
help couples in their communication. That's an exciting project. It will take still a while. Right now, I have a course about how to help yourself unwind your stuff in your head and use this power of your subconscious. But yeah, so just if you follow me on YouTube, I hope I can give you some helpful advice, some techniques that can help you. Maybe I'm happy if I can provide value. Yeah. So.
Yeah, sounds exciting. Well, Bijan Kholgi, coach and the founder of Coaching Online, it's great to have you here on the VRH show, and I look forward to hearing more about your work.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time, and yeah, all the best for you as well.